Welcome back to Around the Globe, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In a historic decision, the Supreme Court has redrawn the boundaries of American trade policy. On September 5, 2025, the court ruled that only Congress, not the President, can impose sweeping tariffs on imported goods. This ruling reasserts the Constitution's separation of powers, ensuring that major economic decisions go through Congress, not the White House. The decision comes after years of economic turmoil triggered by tariffs that raised prices on everything from groceries to electronics. The court's verdict ends the era of unilateral executive action on trade, returning power to elected representatives. For families and businesses, this means more predictable, transparent trade policy and a return to stability. The ruling is a powerful reminder that checks and balances remain the backbone of American democracy. The story of this decision is about restoring accountability and ensuring that decisions affecting everyone are made by everyone's elected leaders. The Supreme Court's decision is rooted in the Constitution. Only Congress can levy taxes, including tariffs. The justices made clear that imposing broad tariffs is a form of taxation, a power reserved for the legislative branch. The court invoked the Major Questions Doctrine, requiring clear congressional authorization for actions with vast economic impact. The law used to justify the tariffs, the IEEPA, was never meant to overhaul U.S. trade policy. For over 2 centuries, Congress has set trade rules and tariff rates, not the president. By defining tariffs as taxes, the court drew a bright line. The executive cannot rewrite economic laws without Congress. Future presidents must now work with Congress to enact major trade measures, ensuring public debate and accountability. This decision protects the democratic process and keeps economic power in the hands of the people's representatives. The 2025 tariffs were justified using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, a law from 1977. Originally, IEPA was a targeted tool for national security threats, never a blank check for broad economic policy. Past presidents used it for sanctions against hostile actors, not to manage the entire U.S. economy. The Trump administration's use of IEPA to impose tariffs on nearly all imports was unprecedented. Courts at every level rejected this radical reinterpretation, ruling that regulate importation does not mean set taxes on all imports. The Supreme Court's decision restores IEEPA to its original limited-purpose targeted sanctions in true emergencies. The ruling puts a firm check on executive overreach and reaffirms Congress's constitutional role in trade. The IEEPA's journey is a lesson in the importance of statutory limits and constitutional boundaries. The law is now back where it belongs, a tool for emergencies, not a shortcut for sweeping economic change. In early 2025, the Trump administration launched tariffs of unprecedented scale, citing national security and trade deficits. A 10% tariff hit nearly all imports, with some goods, especially from China, facing rates up to 50%. The administration claimed these measures would protect American industries and address drug trafficking, but the impact was immediate and severe. Prices on consumer goods soared, and businesses relying on global supply chains saw costs skyrocket. No sector was spared, from car makers to tech firms, everyone felt the squeeze. Trading partners retaliated, targeting U.S. exports and escalating trade wars. Supply chains unraveled, and economic uncertainty gripped the nation. The tariffs, intended to boost the U.S. economy, instead triggered global conflict and left American consumers and businesses caught in the crossfire. The chaos underscored the risks of unilateral trade action. The Supreme Court's intervention was a necessary reset. The tariffs' impact was felt in every American household. The cost of living jumped, with studies showing families paying up to $2,800 more per year. Everyday essentials, food, clothing, appliances, became more expensive, hitting low-income families hardest. Small businesses faced impossible choices: absorb higher costs or pass them to customers. Farmers suffered as foreign markets retaliated, slashing demand for U.S. crops and driving many to the brink of bankruptcy. Instead of reviving manufacturing, the tariffs disrupted supply chains and discouraged investment. Economic uncertainty led to layoffs, business closures, and rising inflation. The pain was widespread, revealing the unintended consequences of sweeping trade policy. The Supreme Court's ruling offers hope for relief and recovery. America's closest allies were stunned by the 2025 tariffs, which targeted friends and rivals alike. Diplomatic ties frayed as countries like Canada, Mexico, and the EU faced punitive measures. Retaliation was swift. U.S. exports from bourbon to soybeans were hit with counter-tariffs, deepening the trade war. The tariffs undermined America's reputation as a champion of free trade and created a leadership vacuum on the world stage. When the Supreme Court struck down the tariffs, relief was immediate. Foreign leaders welcomed the decision as a return to rule of law and predictable trade policy. The ruling restored faith in America's checks and balances and signaled a new era of cooperation. For a world on edge, the decision was a turning point, an opportunity to rebuild trust and stability. The global trading system breathed a collective sigh of relief. The Supreme Court's decision brought instant relief to the U.S. economy. Prices on imported goods began to stabilize, easing pressure on family budgets. Businesses regained confidence, with lower costs and renewed ability to plan for the future. Billions in tariff refunds are expected to flow back to companies, providing a powerful economic stimulus. Globally, the ruling paved the way for trading partners to lift their retaliatory tariffs, reopening export markets for American farmers and manufacturers. The decision restored predictability to the global trading system and reassured allies of America's commitment to fair rules. The effects will ripple for years, strengthening both the economy and international relationships. The court's action was more than legal, it was an economic reset. The Supreme Court's ruling is a milestone for American democracy. By restoring Congress's authority over tariffs, the court reaffirmed the principle of checks and balances. Major trade policies must now be debated and decided in the open, not imposed by executive order. This ensures transparency, accountability, and input from all stakeholders. The decision sets a precedent that protects against future executive overreach and brings stability to U.S. trade policy. America's trading partners can once again trust in the durability of its commitments. The ruling is a victory for the rule of law and the resilience of the American system. It marks the start of a new era, one where economic destiny is shaped by the people's representatives.